Imagine standing just outside the heavy wooden door of a small thatched cottage. It is the deep midwinter of the 14th century. The sun has already dipped below the horizon, leaving the world painted in shades of bruising purple and steel gray. The air here doesn't just feel cold, it feels aggressive. It has a weight to it, pressing against your skin, seeking out the smallest gap in your tunic, the tiniest tear in your hose. Every breath you take feels sharp, like inhaling crushed glass, a reminder that in this era, the elements are not just weather, they are a living, breathing presence that you must negotiate with every single day. You stand in the mud that has frozen into jagged ridges, hard as stone, waiting to enter the only sanctuary you know. Before we step inside, take a moment to look at the village around you. It is silent. There are no streetlights, no hum of distant traffic, no electric buzz. The silence is absolute, broken only by the snap of a branch in the nearby woods or the distant, lonely howl of a wolf. The snow has swallowed the sound of the world. Smoke rises in thin vertical columns from the chimneys of your neighbors, signaling that everyone has retreated. The day's work is done because the light is gone. In this world, darkness is the ultimate curfew. To stay outside now is to invite death. You reach for the rough iron latch of the door. The metal burns your fingertips with its chill. You lift it, push the heavy timber open, and step across the threshold. The transition is immediate, though perhaps not in the way a modern person would expect. It is not warm in here, not by the standards of central heating, but it is still. The wind that was carrying at your cloak outside has been shut out. The air here is thick, heavy with the scent of wood smoke, unwashed wool, dried herbs, and the earthy musk of the animals that live on the other side of the thin partition. This is the smell of survival. You close the door behind you, sliding the heavy wooden bolt into place with a dull thud. That sound is the most comforting thing you will hear all night. It means the world is locked out. It means you have made it through another day. You move towards the center of the room, guided by the faint, dying glow of the hearth. This is the heart of the home, the only source of light and heat. But look closely at the fire. It is not a roaring blaze. A roaring fire is a luxury for the lord in the manor house on the hill, and even he rations his wood. Here, fuel is precious. Every stick, every log, every block of dried peat represents hours of back-breaking labor to gather. You do not burn it wastefully. The fire is low, a bed of pulsing orange embers rather than dancing flames. It gives off a heat that you have to lean into, a warmth that you must court carefully. As your eyes adjust to the gloom, you begin the nightly ritual that has defined human existence for centuries. You are not preparing for comfort, you are preparing for endurance. You do not change into silk pajamas. In fact, you do not undress at all. To remove your layers now would be madness. The temperature inside this cottage will drop to near freezing before dawn. Instead, you check your clothing. You tighten the drawstring of your woolen hose. You pull your linen undertunic down, smoothing it against your skin, trapping that layer of body heat. You wrap your outer cloak tighter around your shoulders. In the medieval winter, your clothing is your first house. The cottage is merely the second shell. You move to the sleeping area. It is not a private bedroom. The concept of privacy is a modern invention, a luxury that requires space and heat that you do not have. Here, the family sleeps together. It is a matter of physics as much as affection. One body generates heat. 4 bodies generate a furnace. The bed is a large raised platform made of rough-hewn timber, kept off the cold earthen floor to avoid the damp and the rats. On top of the wood lies a mattress, but not of springs or memory foam. It is a large sack of heavy linen stuffed tight with straw. Fresh straw in the autumn feels springy and sweet, smelling of the harvest. But now, in the depths of winter, the straw is crushed flat, broken down into a fine dust that rustles deeply every time you shift your weight. You sit on the edge of the bed. The straw crunches beneath you. You run your hand over the blankets. They are heavy, scratchy wool woven on a loom in the village. They are dense, matted with use, and they smell of sheep's lanolin and smoke. This oil in the wool is vital. It repels the dampness that seeps from the walls. You can see your breath fogging in the air here, even inside. You lift the heavy coverlet and slide your legs in, still wearing your boots if they are dry, or thick woolen socks if they are not. The sensation of the rough wool against your neck is familiar. It scratches, but that scratchiness triggers a Pavlovian response in your brain: safety. As you settle in, you feel the mattress dip as others join you. The children are placed in the middle, the warmest spot in the hierarchy of the bed. They are small furnaces, radiating heat, but they are also the most vulnerable to the drafts that snake along the floorboards. You lie on the outside, your back to the room, your body acting as a shield. This is the architecture of love in the Middle Ages, a wall of flesh and wool built against the frost. You pull the blankets up, not just to your chin, but over your head, leaving a tiny tunnel for air. You create a microclimate beneath the wool, trapping every exhale, recycling the warmth until the space beneath the wool becomes toasty and humid. Lying there, you listen. This is the soundtrack of a world without machines. You hear the wind testing the roof, searching for a loose bundle of thatch to tear away. You hear the timbers of the cottage groaning as they contract in the dropping temperature. And then, you hear the sound that explains why you are not freezing to death. From beneath the floor, or perhaps just behind a thin wicker screen, comes a low, rhythmic chewing, a heavy shifting of hooves, a deep, resonant snort. The animals. The cow and the few goats you own are brought inside for the winter, usually kept in a byre attached to the main room or situated directly below a sleeping loft. This isn't just to protect them from the wolves. It is to use them as living radiators. 1,000 pounds of cow generates an immense amount of heat. As you lie in the dark, you can smell them, a pungent mix of manure and hay. But you do not mind. That smell is the smell of life. You feel their heat rising through the floorboards, warming the air just enough to keep the water in the bucket from freezing solid. Their slow, steady breathing sets the rhythm for your own. In this dark, cold world, the barrier between human and animal dissolves. You are all just warm blood trying to outlast the ice. But sleep does not come in one long, unbroken block. That is a modern luxury, born of electric lights and artificial days. In the medieval world, the night is 12, perhaps 14 hours long. No one can sleep that long. Instead, you drift into what is known as the first sleep. It is a deep, heavy exhaustion that takes you the moment you get warm. You sleep like the dead for 4 hours, and then, sometime in the deeper darkness, long before dawn, you wake up. This is the watch, or the period between sleeps. You are awake, but the world is pitch black. The cottage is silent, save for the animals. You do not reach for a phone. You do not turn on a lamp. You lie in the dark, and you think. This creates a unique mental state, a time of quiet introspection that the modern world has entirely lost. You might whisper to your spouse lying next to you, discussing the grain stores, the health of the livestock, the fears of the coming spring. You might pray, the Latin words tumbling softly into the cold air. Some, if the moon is bright enough to cast a silver square through the shutter cracks, might rise to tend the fire, raking the ashes to ensure the embers don't die completely. Losing the fire is a disaster you cannot afford. Flint and steel are temperamental and tinder is damp. If the fire dies, the morning will be a misery of shivering and frustration. So in this waking period, you might get up, the cold air hitting you like a physical blow, and feed a single precious piece of hardwood to the coals, banking it with ash so it smolders slowly. You watch the red glow intensify, illuminating the rough texture of the wattle and daub walls. Those walls are essentially woven sticks plastered with mud, straw, and dung. They are thick, but they are not airtight. You can feel the drafts, the winter's fingers probing the room. You might stuff a rag into a crack near the window before hurrying back to the warmth of the bed. As you slide back under the covers for your second sleep, Your stomach likely gives a hollow growl. Hunger is another constant companion in the winter. The harvest is long in the past. The fresh greens of spring are months away. You are living on preserved foods, salted meats that are tough as leather, dried peas, hard bread, and perhaps some shriveled apples. Your body is running on reserves. You conserve energy instinctively. You move slower. You sleep more. You are entering a semi-hibernation, your metabolic rhythm syncing with the barren season. You ignore the hunger, knowing that breakfast will be nothing more than a warm pottage of boiled grains. You have learned to make peace with the empty feeling. Now, let your mind drift away from the peasant's cottage for a moment. Imagine you are elsewhere, perhaps in the stone cell of a monastery. The experience of the winter night here is different, yet the cold is the same. Here, the discipline of the order demands that you endure. There is no wife or husband to share body heat with. There are no children to bundle together. You sleep alone on a narrow pallet. The stone walls of the abbey suck the heat out of the air with a terrifying efficiency. Stone is unforgiving. It holds the cold of the day and radiates it back at night. You lie in your habit, the rough wool your only comfort. You are waiting for the bell that summons you to matins, the night prayer. While the peasant sleeps his second sleep, the monk must rise, his feet touching the freezing flagstones, and walk through the icy cloisters to the church. The air in the sanctuary is so cold that the holy water in the font has a skin of ice. You sing the psalms, your breath rising in clouds of steam that mingle with the incense. There is a beauty in it, a stark crystalline purity, but it is a beauty that hurts. You offer your shivering up as a penance, a physical sacrifice. Then you return to your cell, to the cold solitude, and try to find warmth enough to drift off again. Or perhaps imagine you are in the great Lord's castle. Surely it is better there. Yes and no. The Lord has furs, thick pelts of wolf and bear. He has a fireplace in his chamber big enough to roast a pig. But a castle is not a home, it is a fortress. The rooms are cavernous, with ceilings 20 feet high. The heat from the fire rises instantly, lost in the shadows of the rafters, leaving the floor sweeping with drafts. The Lord sleeps in a bed surrounded by heavy velvet curtains, creating a room within a room to trap the heat. He wears a nightcap to keep his head warm, but even here, water freezes in the jug by the bedside. The winter is the great leveler. It finds the king shivering in his silk, just as the peasant shivers in his wool. But bring your mind back to the cottage. The second sleep is ending. The light is changing. It is not yet bright. Dawn in winter is a slow, reluctant affair, a gradual graying of the blackness. The first sound of the morning is the rooster, a ragged crow that cuts through the frost. Then the sound of the church bell ringing prime in the distance. Inside the cottage, the family begins to stir. This is the hardest moment of the 24 hours, the extraction, leaving the warm, humid cocoon of the bed to face the biting air of the room. You throw back the heavy blankets. The cold hits you instantly, seizing your skin. You move quickly, not of energy, but out of necessity. You grab your boots, stiff with cold, and shove your feet in.
You do not wash, not really. Maybe a splash of icy water on the face to shock the eyes open. But to strip down and bathe would be to invite sickness. Pneumonia is a specter that hangs over the village, the lung fever, and it takes the young and the old with little mercy. So you stay dirty and you stay warm. You go to the hearth. You take the iron poker and break the crust of ash you made in the night. A faint orange glow greets you. You lean down, blowing gently. The ash flies up, coating your face in gray dust, but the ember brightens. You feed it dry straw, then small twigs. When the first tongue of yellow flame licks up, the relief is physical. The room is not warm yet, but the promise of warmth is there. You hang the iron pot of pottage over the growing fire, hoping to thaw the frozen porridge from the night before. The door must be opened. You need water, and you need to tend to the animals properly. You walk to the door and slide back the bolt. It sticks, frozen in place, and you have to hammer it with the heel of your hand. It gives way with a crack. You push the door open and the morning light hits you. The world outside is white and blue. The snow is piled high against the wattle walls, insulating the house from the outside just as the wool insulates your body. The air is so clean it hurts. You see your breath, a massive cloud of steam. You look at the village. Other doors are opening. Other figures are emerging, bundled in shapeless layers of gray and brown wool. You nod to your neighbor. There is no need for words. The nod says it all. We are still here. We survived the night. You grab the wooden bucket and head for the well or the stream. You have to break the ice to get to the water. The physical exertion warms you up. Chopping wood, carrying water, milking the cow, the labor is what keeps your blood moving. If you stop, you freeze. This is why the medieval winter is a time of work, even when the fields are sleeping. You mend tools, you spin wool, you repair the thatch. You stay busy to stay alive. But there is also a strange beauty to this boring existence. Because the world is so small, limited to the distance you can walk in the snow, limited to the light of the fire, the connections you have are intense. You know every story your grandmother tells by the fire, but you listen again because her voice pushes back the dark. You know the texture of every beam in your roof. You know the temperament of every animal in your byre. You are not distracted by the noise of the world. You are entirely present in the struggle for heat and food. As the day truly begins and the sun hangs low and weak in the southern sky, casting long shadows across the snow, you return to the cottage with your bucket of water. The fire is burning properly now. The smell of heating grain fills the small room. The children are awake, huddling near the hearth, wrapping their hands around warm clay mugs. You realize that this life, this freezing, hard, dark existence, is not miserable. It is simply human. It is a life lived at the very edge of the elements, where every moment of warmth is a victory and every sunrise is a triumph. The winter tries to conquer the village, to bury it in silence and ice. But every morning the smoke rises from the chimneys again. The doors open. The people emerge. You close the door against the wind, shutting yourself back in the dim, smoky warmth. You are safe. You are warm enough. And for now, that is everything. The winter can howl all it wants. The fire is lit. And tonight you will do it all again. The layers, the straw, the huddle, the darkness, the long, patient wait for spring. This is the rhythm of the past, a slow, steady heartbeat under the snow, waiting, enduring, surviving.